I'm going to tell you why this golf club here is damaging your golf. Guys, Matt Fryer, PGA professional here, and I'm going to give you some advice today. We're down at the glorious Alzora Golf Club, and I'm going to tell you why a 60-degree wedge is damaging your golf. Now, I'm going to go through three scenarios where I see amateurs really damaging scores because they are using this club. Now, this video isn't to say that you should never use a 60-degree wedge. I just want you to think a little bit more when you are getting this club out of the bag. If you've got one, fantastic. We need to know how to use it, when to use it, and why we're using it. But I'll give you three examples in this video of what I see mostly from my students and amateurs when I'm playing social rounds with them, where they pull the 60 out of the bag and it just ruins the score basically. And reason number one is this shot here. As we have a look at what we're faced with, I found the fairway and I've actually only got 80 yards to the flag. Now what we can see is that there's some elevation, there's some bunker to go over, and what a lot of people do here will automatically go straight to the 60. And the problem with that is that because of the loft of this golf club, what this ball wants to do is just go straight up in the air. And unfortunately, because of that, if our strike isn't perfect, if we catch it toe, heely, if we get it a little bit heavy, then unfortunately what will happen is that we pull up ever so slightly short. Bit like that one, a tiny bit chunky in the bunker, not covered the distance that I would need to cover. So what I want you to do is maybe when we get into thinking that we're going to hit a full out lob wedge, I want you to go up a club. I want you to go to a pitching wedge or a 52. I want you to choke down the grip a little bit, and I want you to make your stance a little bit smaller. So for me, I'm going to go for the 52 here, because what that then allows me to do, even if I don't quite strike this perfectly, it just gives me that margin of error. Because there's less loft, it's going to go forwards a little bit more, and thus if I don't quite get it, I'm still going to cover the distance. Now, leave me a comment, leave me a like down below if you're someone who pitches with the 60 for those full shots and you find that, oh, it's just short all the time. As where, if, like I say, we take the one wedge or two wedge more, we grip down ever so slightly, and then we adopt a slightly smaller stance and then make the similar swing, what we will find that even on a poorer strike, I'm still going to get the ball all the way back to the hole and give myself a real margin of error. So that is reason number one, guys. Make sure you're covering that off. So the second reason that a 60 degree might be damaging your game is a scenario like this, where we have to go over a bunker, but there's not really much room up and to the flag, maybe 20 yards maximum here, probably more closer to 15. And what I see from a lot of people is a under-committed swing and almost under-hitting the shot. Now, again, that I've just alluded to in the first tip, this ball wants to go up in the air, and what I see a lot of time is when we get this bunker in front of us or a big slope, I see a lot of amateurs opening the face up more, so it's going to go even higher. It just wants to go up instead of forwards here, and then as we're over it, we sort of make a long swing and think, no, that's going to go too far, and then we quit on it, so we end up hitting shots something similar like this. That would be the worst case scenario that we would get. But a lot of the time we get it where the underhit leads to actually going into the bunker as we go through, because we've not had that commitment. So we see a lot of this going on. Oh, no. What we've got to do, if we are going to use 60 in this scenario, we've now got to know and we've got to commit to actually putting a confident swing on it. If you're not confident at all of actually hitting it, maybe take a little less loft and go sideways, not going over the obstacle. But what we've got to understand is that you don't really need to open it up that much. What you can do is just play the ball a little bit more forwards, but what we've got to do is make sure that we have that committed follow through and see that we're swinging out towards the target and letting the body turn. Don't think because you've got a 60 degree in your hand you don't need to hit it that much because you're that close. This ball wants to go up, not forward. So make sure if you are in these scenarios, you're going to stay committed and you're going to give it a speed just to pop it up and get some forward motion on it. So take your setup, ball a little bit forwards, don't mess with the club face in terms of opening it, and then just make a committed, quicker swing and we can see there, pops up in the sky and just lands pin high and doesn't really roll out much. So tip number 2, if you are going to use it around the greens to go over the obstacles, make sure you're committed and giving it enough of a hit, because I think we really do underhit these clubs. So our third and final reason, and this is the most common one of all, yet all the times we talk about it on this channel, on other coaching channels, and advice we see from PGA pros, the lob wedge pulled when I am literally 1, 2, 3, 4 paces onto the green and pretty much a flat surface up until that flag. Now back to the flag, I do have about 22, 23 yards. There is the slightest undulation in the middle of the green, but there's not much going on here. There's no bunkers for me to go over, there's no long grass, there's no real contours in the green that are going to cause me any real issue, and we see this time and time again. And because of the things that I alluded into in problems 1 and problems 2, because of the loft aspect on this 60 degree, the margin for error is so fine. It can look good when you pull shots off with it, but especially around here I see it being pulled so many times out of the bag. People stand here, we maybe have too long a swing and we get the shot where as we hit it we think, oh no, I'm swinging too long, and then we get that horrible thin that goes firing over the back of the green at a million miles an hour, and you'll have a friend no doubt that definitely does this. Or you actually could hit a pretty good shot here, but I think again when we think about what I just said in number 2, the problem there, we underestimate how hard this club needs to actually be hit. So I can be stood here, like I say, with no real trouble for me to actually navigate. I can stand to it pretty nicely and I can make a pretty good action and hit a half decent one. But look now, all of a sudden I've hit a pretty good pitch there, but I've got the best part of 20 feet to actually get up to that flag, because I didn't get it absolutely perfect and pick my perfect landing spot. I've now left myself with a lot of work to do, as where, quite simply, I say to a lot of my students, we could almost kick it closer a lot of the time when you're using a lob wedge, because if we start to think, well, maybe let's get a little less loft involved, a 9-iron or something like that, what this does gives us a little bit of a margin for error. Firstly, we don't have to fly it as far, so we don't have to swing it as far, so we're not going to have as much length in the swing to maybe mess it up. Also, on our missed strikes, it's going to get away with a little bit more because it's coming out with more forward momentum, and also it's going to be rolling a bit more like a putt, thus we'll be able to, you know, potentially hole it a little bit easier. So take that more lofty club, 8-iron, 9-iron, 7-iron, whatever it may be, and just try and adopt a bit more like a putting stroke. And even on your poorer ones, something like that, you get away with a bit more. So we've got to try and actually use our brains a little bit. And if you're totally struggling with the lob wedge, something like the putter could really do well. Like I said a moment ago, we could almost kick it closer, and I would imagine you'd be a bit more comfortable hitting the putter and getting that rolling along the ground as opposed to flying that lob wedge all the way up there. So if you're really struggling, get the putter out and just give that a roll towards the greens, because that one there, again, not my best, but it's the closest one out of all the shots that I've hit, and it was the easiest one for me to do, a small putting stroke, and I get that ball going along the ground. So guys, if you're really struggling with that lob wedge, and it is a club that if you just on reflection think it's damaging my golf, have a look which scenario is it killing you the most in. Take a little bit of the advice and see if it can change your scores in your next round. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed that video. Thanks to Alzor for having us down. Hit the subscribe button and we'll see you in another lesson very soon.